the early access can't complain 0.6 version of Evo dropped recently. We've been testing it for multiple hours whilst live streaming, so in this video I'm going to tell you what's really good about it, what's absolutely terrible about it, and what you should expect from Assetto Corsa Evo at this point in time. This video should be helpful for those of you that want to feel depressed or are maybe thinking about getting the game. As always, this will be a highly controversial sim racing video, so make sure that you subscribe to have the power to unsubscribe. It's a service we only offer to subscribers. Clicking the like button will make your tea bags fresher. And of course, a huge thank you to all our channel members, supporters and donors. Without you, the internet definitely would be a better place. Right, I'm going to start with the positives, because sim races are incredibly sensitive, not to good quality force feedback as it turns out, but they're very sensitive to any criticism about their video game of choice. They cry and then the hands are all slippy on the wheel and then they can't race. So, you know, it's terrible. So we're going to start with the positives here. And the number one positive is that Kunos know how to number their early access title. PMR are on version 2.0, despite PMR probably being version 0.5 in reality, whereas Kunos have appropriately named this 0.6. And in fairness, it does feel like a 0.6 version of the game. It's not the 1.0, it's still in development, it's taken a long time. They're definitely not following their roadmap. I guess Marco and the Kunos guys, their roadmap's probably Italian and coffee stained, so it's understandable that they can't follow the roadmap. But it is appropriately version 0.6, and each time there is an update, the game does improve quite sizably, and you can really appreciate how much work has gone into Evo. Now, there's lots of things one can complain about with Evo, and don't worry, we certainly will complain about those things, but one thing that you can't complain about is the sheer quality and general artistry that's gone into the game. The track models, the car models, the audio, the actual content in the game you can see has had a hell of a lot of work put into it, and you can really tell that the people doing that work definitely need to go outside more and probably need other hobbies outside of motorsport and cars, because you really have to have too much of an obsession to get the details as good as these guys get the details. I suggest they do some glider flying. It's much better than car driving. Gliders, woo! Okay, we've lost all our viewers again. So yeah, with the new cars, they all look absolutely fantastic. I think they all sound really great. They all have really nice cockpit details, the displays on them. All the little details are just there as you'd expect from Kunos content. Also, as you can see on the screen here, you have Sebring, which is it looks a bit like a mammary gland resting on a table. If you look at the line of the track, that's how I view it. The road itself and the track, I don't mind it too much, but I've driven it to death in all the simulators. I think it's an alright track. It's got a nice flow to it, but it's a sort of Marmite racetrack. Either way, the Kunos version of it feels really nice and detailed, really polished, really fleshed out. If you, again, have a budget computer such as mine with a 5090, you can really enjoy all those track details, and it really does feel as well like you're at an event, especially from the sheer number of flags. Kunos have actually reduced the noodle men in order to increase the numbers of flags. Turns out a flag is much easier to render because it's two-dimensional. That said, the flags do add a nice bit of ambience, and fortunately for Americans who don't have any issues with patriotism being over the top and egregious political decisions that affect everyone else in the world, there is a ginormous American flag there, so Americans can know what country they're in whilst forgetting that other countries exist. So that's really nice that they put that in, but it is a really good immersive track to drive on, allowing you to really see Sebring. Of course, if you brought a sim rig to the beach, you could see Sebring, and if you then copyrighted that whole process, you could see Sebring. Either way, the only things I could really fault with the track is it does seem a little bit smooth. Now, personally, I like that because I don't like bouncing all over the place. But if you've driven this track in other simulators and watch onboards, some of the corners are very famous for having ludicrous bumps on them that don't come across in Evo, particularly at this point in time. Could be suspension, could be the track model. I don't care either way, but that is a notable difference. And I did see online some people questioning the track cut stuff with it. That's always an issue with Sebring in the different simulators, because it's one of those tracks where in real life the edge of the circuit is apparently whatever the race organiser decided it is, not the actual markings. So we'll have to just see how that pans out in the future. But sort of track limits and all that multiplayer stuff, I think that's something more for a later date and optimisation. Not really that important in a 0.6. What I do really love as well with the details of this track, aside from the flags, is the grass. Very important, but you see where the grass is patchy or more dense and not just like pure pristine grass. The groundskeepers at Sebring not doing the best of work, but then that actually makes it look really realistic. Fantastic grass detail from Kunos. I appreciate that, 10 out of 10. But also the runoff on some of the corners where it's dirt and there's no curbing, where you see the dirt's being built up and where the grass is being worn away, God forbid. That dirt and stuff and that detail at the edge of the track is really, really good on this, and just helps make it feel like a real location that's had a bit of wear and tear. So that's really nice. But yeah, unfortunately, I think the game is still quite heavy graphically and quite difficult to run. So, I mean, if you can't get a 5090, maybe you can pick up a Voodoo 2 for cheap, and that should run this pretty well, along with the power of 3DFX, the most powerful graphics platform ever produced. So the positives: really fantastic new track, really great car models. Also, have to mention it, I think the physics have actually changed quite substantially, mostly in a positive way. The cars are, I would say, a lot more progressive, easier to drive, and a lot more forgiving. If you overdrive and the back steps out, it's a lot easier to countersteer. You seem to be able to bring things back from wider countersteer. From the throttle, the cars are less binary on the throttle than they used to be. So you don't have to be as careful on the throttle, and as a result the cars are a little bit more playful. On the negative of that, you'll find that the cars, compared to the previous version of the game, are a little bit stiffer feeling to handle and a little bit less snappy. So if you like the really snappy behaviour of the previous versions of AC, which I think some people do, and it's quite nice in a video game, things being very snappy, then you might not actually like things to be more progressive and smoother. So that's something to be aware of. But in general, I think a more progressive, smoother, controllable handling is generally more realistic, or at least more fun to drive. So I think things are progressing in the general correct direction with the physics. Still quite a way to go, I think. It still does seem that a lot of the content is quite binary in behaviour. Doesn't seem that the four-wheel drift behaviour of the vehicles is correct. It's more that the back pops out and then you're just counter-steering and you're affecting the yaw of the vehicle, rather than actually holding wide drifts, small drifts, very, very small drifts. It's like you've either got a grip or you're in a power slide, basically. It's lacking that amazing balanced poise handling characteristic that you have in the original AC, RBR, Live for Speed, Automobilista 1. So I think they've still got a way to go there with the physics. And I'd say, though the cars nose in really nicely and you get really good turning on the brakes when you're not chronically understeering, you can get the cars to nose in nicely and maybe nose in with a tiny bit of understeer as well, though that seems to work really quite well. And I think in the previous version, the braking and turn-in behaviour was quite nice. It still doesn't really feel like there's a good point of neutral steer. So that's when all the tyres are sort of balanced and the car can then just be steered on the brake and the accelerator without you really need to do anything on the wheel. Neutral steer seems to be really missing in this. And again, I think that's partly due to the lack of it having balanced drift behaviour. And I don't mean drifting, you know, like your insanity side-by-side crazy slip angle drifting. I mean even sports cars, vintage cars, modern cars, Formula cars. All cars generally, even slick tyres, actually tend to have the potential, in optimal conditions, depending on the setup, but the potential to have a small few degrees of balanced slip that the driver can play with. So that's just really, really lacking in this title still, and that's hopefully something they can address, because as I say, that is specifically the thing that makes AMS1, AC1, RBR, Live for Speed so joyful to drive. That's why I can still play those games after 4 billion years and losing all my hair. I had hair when I started sim racing, but even after losing my hair, I can still load up Live for Speed and cry with joy from how fun it is to just drive any of the cars in that title. Whereas with Evo, I kind of cry with despair. Not that it's terrible, but the handling just doesn't have that joy to it. And then my tears get on my steering wheel, and then it gets even worse. What did I say about sim races being overly sensitive? So, generally, great progress with the physics. I still put this way ahead of GT7. And there are moments in this, there's aspects to this, where I actually prefer some of the handling to AC1, Live for Speed, LMU. There's aspects to this that I actually prefer over those simulators. So there's moments, there's little slithers of shine, and then it's like a concrete brick hits you in the face and you feel terrible again. So it's potential there is what I'm saying, but maybe it's going to take a while to polish that potential up. So those are the... Oh, one more positive, guys. I'm sorry, shifted to negativity too soon there. The UI, they've changed the controller UI and other aspects of the UI to make selecting vehicles a bit easier and binding controls easier. It still looks really bloody confusing, and it's probably one of the worst UIs. No, it's not the worst UI in sim racing, but it's pretty terrible as far as UIs go. I think their designers probably eaten the wrong type of mushroom before doing the UI, but it works, it functions better now, so that's nice. Functionality comes before usability and user experience, I would argue, but there's improvements to the UI, but it could do have been a lot better. That, ladies and gentlemen, is the positives. Now we move to the despair and sadness. So, as we said in our first impressions video, force feedback, massively problematic in this title still. I would say it's at the sort of bog standard usable level of force feedback. You do get the counter steer on braking, it loads up when the car's loaded into the corner. There's a load up and a response and a tightness to it. There's also great vibrations for the track and the curbing, so the force feedback basics are there. However, and unfortunately a lot of sim racers don't understand or realise what's missing here, however, it really lacks dynamic range, dynamic load forces. So things like a good dynamic range of load for understeer. Sure, you can put a vibration using the understeer effect, but that doesn't really help you preempt the understeer and drive smoother using a range of force. When you go into a corner and the suspension is already loaded up in this, it just flatlines and you have a very flat force feedback signal. Very similar to ACC in many ways. So initially when you brake, it's like, oh, something's loading up, it's hooked up, but then there's no actual detail to describe where the grip and where the slip is on the tone, if you're understeering, and to how much you're understeering. And again, same with like the rear coming out, it's a very aggressive countersteer, self-aligning torque that you get. It's very clear, it's very obvious, but it's not detailed, and that is just absolutely kills how you can drive and play a simulator. And if you play with force feedback, really does ruin the driving experience of the game. And I think it also ends up hiding what could be quite interesting dynamic vehicles. You can definitely tell there's a lot going on with the physics in this, and when you don't have that force feedback detail, because you can't even visually see a lot of detailed physics, like the car's not actually visually moving much, the loads are changing, but the car's not moving. So without the force feedback, there's no way for you to really properly experience and feel the physics. If you still doubt me, if people still doubt me, which I know many do, go and get LMU, play the default version of Le Mans Ultimate, right? Feel how terrible and lacking the force feedback is for that in terms of detail and dynamics and what I'm describing here. Then get the LMU FFB app, head over to my Patreon, you can sign up for free, and get my profile for the LMU FFB app. You can just import it in and then drive the GT3 cars with my profile and without my profile. And you'll immediately notice that by using, by having like understeer, oversteer, self-align, a whole bunch of stuff that's done in that app, the cars immediately feel 100 times more detailed, and you can more easily balance into the corner. You can easily feel the braking. You can feel how hard you're braking. You can feel how hard you're pushing through the corner. You can feel when the tyres are starting to give out before they fully give out. Honestly, try my force feedback profile for LMU if you're sceptical of what I've been saying, and get back to me in the comments section, because it really does clearly demonstrate all the stuff I've been saying for the last decade. So LMU FFB, there you go. Right, so that's that. We've talked about this already. Force feedback needs a lot with this, and there's also a really huge vague area in the centre, which when you're on the throttle is particularly prevalent. Yeah, you can fiddle with effects and stuff, and you can tweak your force feedback, but really there's still a lot that needs to be done on this. Kunos' response, I believe, to the force feedback at the moment is that obviously they're still heavily working on the physics, and primarily it's the physics that drive force feedback, the tyre model, suspension, and so there's no point in them tweaking and fiddling with the force feedback too much until they've really locked down the physics, because, well, the physics are going to change the force feedback, and that's what they're working on. So it's understandable that it is how it is now. It's understandable that it's not their top priority. I would argue it's difficult to test a game without being able to feel it properly, but either way, this is just how it is right now. Force feedback still very lacking. Moving away from force feedback, because you know, I wouldn't want to talk about it too much. Never have a habit of doing that. Also have to say, big negative, performance of the game. It's not going to run on low-end systems very well still. I think there's probably going to be a lot more optimization needed, so keep that in mind. Though it does look really nice on a high-end system, I think, you know, the performance is going to be quite a problem. Then you have the AI in this at the moment. Still absolutely terrible. It's feels pretty similar to like AC1 AI, if not worse in many ways. You're not really likely to get interesting races with it. It did seem to me, though, with the AI, when the AI drives into you in this and tries to pit maneuver you, which I don't know why the Kunos AI do that, it doesn't actually pit maneuver you as much as it used to. So that's an improvement, I guess. But yeah, AI still really not very good. Much better off with iRacing, single player, LMU, R Factor 2, AMS 2. They all have much better AI race room. They all have much better AI than this. So if you're looking for offline racing with AI, you can have them on the track, but they're not going to be very fun to race against and borderline annoying. They also tend to just follow a line. At Sebring, there's just this convoy of cars. It looks terrible. And on the subject of AI, I know there's a lot of people asking about single player and wanting something to do. And I would say at the moment, Evo is one of the worst sims for things to do. Like, sure, if you like playing games that are in development and just trying the different content and seeing if you've got a fast enough computer to run it, that's a thing to do. But the game doesn't really have much of a game there at the moment. Like, they took out the Driver Academy stuff, or those little missions they had in the first early access, and they haven't added new ones of those. So there's nothing really to play through if that's what you're looking for. You do have multiplayer, and there are multiplayer servers. There's not a huge amount of multiplayer action on it. You could do online racing, but, you know, there's much better options at this point in time. If you want to do online racing, I highly recommend LMU. The original AC is just better for online racing. Maybe not ranked racing, but just racing with friends. You can... Shader Patch now has a 1v1 thing. You can just invite a friend in and race them straight away. Nothing needed. And then also just the raw driving in AC1 and the content, there's just more there to do for free, basically. So I'd say AC Rally actually is really good for having something to do. BeamNG, there's loads of stuff to do in that. Wreckfest 2 now has missions. But yeah, Evo, don't get it if you're looking for a thing to play through as a game. I think it's going to take at least 1, 2, 3, 4. It's going to be like 1.0 before I think they actually put a proper stuff to do in it. So there you go. Not really a great game at this point in time, though you can race it online. But the biggest negative, guys, I have to say is that at this point in time as well, and even moving into the future, I'm not quite sure 100% of the point of Evo. If they can make the force feedback amazing, if they can make the physics amazing, if they get the ranked racing and that works nice, and then if they do single player thing, sure, none of that's there really at the moment. And if they do the open world thing and it's all in a convenient package, I think that would justify it. That would be the thing to go for. You know, buy a game, open world driving, bit of street driving with your friends, and you know. But again, there's no open world stuff in this, in the early access. The one feature, the one thing that's potentially the USP for this game, no mention of it. And yeah, so until that happens, I think the hype, the Steam train's run out of coal on this. So is my ability to corner without spinning. So I would absolutely hold off. For most people that are interested in this title, I would absolutely just hold off at this point in time. There's no real reason to get involved with it now. And if you've already bought it and you're like, oh, shall I reinstall it again? I wouldn't really bother necessarily. Like, I mean, you could do if you've got nothing better to do. But you know what I mean? It's just in that point where I think we need to wait for a few more updates for the excitement to return to this title. And that's just the reality of things, I think. The big problem with Evo was that they over-promoted initially, and their coffee-stained AA roadmap, they misread the coffee stains. If they were drinking tea, they would have had tea grains to read, and the future predictions for their development would have been a lot more clearer. But, you know, Italians, coffee, what are you going to do? They're just there with the sunshine, eating all their amazing food with their beautiful women everywhere. No wonder they're distracted. They need more tea. So, that's the problem with Evo, is that they really hyped it. People got thinking that it's going to move faster than it actually is. The reality is, it's plodding along at its own pace, and the work they're doing is really good work. It's really nice. Like, it's really good attention to detail, and you have to give massive credit to them, but it's just going to take time. It's like when you put too much water in your kettle. You're dying for a cup of tea, but you put too much water in there. It's going to take a long time to boil. I then question, actually, how is an early access like this really that useful? Does it just diminish hype? Does it actually make it confusing as the physics keep changing and players are like, oh, well, what's the realistic physics? They told us the last one had this perfect or much better tyre model with all these carcass things, but now it's changed again. So was it good the previous one, or is it good now? You know, you're just confusing people that don't know any better. They might eventually work out that a lot of simulator stuff is effectively somewhat arbitrary and dependent on underlying technology, and it doesn't matter what numbers you put into it, the underlying technology will define the end realism. So doing all these tweaks and all these other things and using numbers is actually irrelevant. It's just the end result. Then maybe sim racers will work that out. Probably not. But yeah, it's going to take time. They've done good work. This is a really nice update. I've talked for far too long, but I think this gives you a reasonable overview of the current state of Assetto Corsa Evo. If you got to the end of the video without passing out from old age, then give us a teapot, a fish, a teapot and another fish. I appreciate those teapots and fish. It lets me know how many people have wasted their lives watching my channel. I will see you in the next live stream that we do. But until then, thank you very much for watching. Happy tea drinking. Take care and goodbye.